nothing like a good sibling rivalry. It's always really closely fought, and that's what today's battle is going to be as well. These are not identical twins, but they do share the same DNA. Yes, I'm talking about the Creta versus Seltos. Now, thanks to COVID, as you can see, we're a little bit delayed and we're doing things differently. Normally, I'd be standing outside and showing you both the cars, but I'm staying in my own car because I've got my mask off, adequately socially distanced, and Gavin's in the other car.
Since we were out testing cars last, the whole world has completely turned upside down, and I, for one, I'm just happy to be behind the wheel once again. But let's not waste any more time, let's get right into it. And let me tell you right at the outset that these two cars have a lot in common. They share the same platform, they have the same engines and gearboxes, and even on the inside, a lot of the interior bits are familiar. But what's different is the skin that wraps in all this hardware. So let's take a look at that first. As far as outright dimensions go, the Seltos is marginally longer and wider overall, but it's the Creta that's taller. The Seltos nose has a lot of styled elements. A split grille, knurled chrome, smart-looking slim LEDs that stretch its width out, and fog lamps that are housed underneath. All across the front there are cuts and curves, and there's lots of definition. The Creta's nose, on the other hand, grabs your attention for entirely different reasons, with its huge cascade grille and uniquely shaped LED headlamps and DRLs. The side profile of both cars is very similar. Both cars are very well proportioned, with big differences being their alloys and the C-pillar area. At the rear, like at the front, the Seltos has the classic elements with a lot of intricate detail, while the Creta has a more convoluted mishmash of elements. Whichever look you prefer is up to you, but in this department, both Renuka and I agree the Seltos is the much better looking car.
When you open up the tailgate, the Creta and Seltos provide an identical 433-litre boot space. There's really no visible difference, but with the Seltos' rear seats being a little more upright, it does offer that little extra maneuverability for larger bags. But honestly, the difference is too small to even count it as one. Now let's move to the inside and see how they square up there.
Now I really like the design of the Creta's dashboard. It's clean, it's simple, and I really like the way the 10.25-inch touchscreen sits flush with the dash, making it quite easy to access. I also like this butterfly wing shape for the steering wheel and the big digital dial in the center over there. Now while quality overall is rather good, in some places, particularly right here in front of you on the dash top, you'll find some shiny hard plastics, and that causes it to lose a premium point to the Seltos.
Well, the Seltos definitely has softer touch materials, and even the top of the dash plastic is much richer, much better, and overall it gives you a richer, more premium feel. Even the layout of the dash is much nicer, and the dials are cleaner, more clearer. The 10.25-inch infotainment is shared, and it's the same as the Creta, but this one sits up out of the dash into a single console that's integrated over the dials as well. Another difference is that the Creta has the wireless charging pad in a more accessible place than the Seltos, which has it tucked in a recess behind the gear lever.
In India, the back seat of a car can be a deal maker or a deal breaker, and the Creta clearly has an advantage here. It's got the comfier cushioning, the better seat back angle, and better under thigh support. And as an added advantage, you get this massive panoramic sunroof.
The Seltos' back seat is also good in isolation. It's spacious and comfortable, but in this comparison, the seats feel firmer, the under-thigh support is less, and the recline angle is a bit more upright. As far as features go, it's 2 pence of this and 5 pence of that. Each car has something that the other one doesn't have. Let's take a look. It's worth noting that the Seltos has recently upgraded its feature list, and it's added some features onto each variant to take on the Creta. And in addition, the GTX and the GTX Plus trims now also get all black interiors. However, We had the version prior to the update, and while there is a whole list of features that each one has over the other, the key differences of note are that the Creta has the panoramic voice-activated roof, the electronic parking brake, and paddle shifters, which the Seltos does not have. The Seltos, on the other hand, has over the Creta the 360-degree camera, front parking sensors in addition to the rear, the blind spot indicator, the heads-up display, rain-sensing wipers, and the telescopic steering adjust, in addition to tilt. Both cars have some quirky bits like the lack of backlight on all buttons except the main window button. And both of them have the SOS button that's oddly placed and tends to get activated at times when you adjust the rearview mirror.
Now it's important to tell you right at the outset that we have each checked out both these cars extensively earlier on and driven them back to back. But in the interest of social distancing for this shoot, we'll just stick to our individual cars. Both cars in the comparison today are the 1.4 litre turbo direct injection petrol engines with the DCT automatic gearboxes. Their outputs of 140 horsepower and 242 Nm are exactly the same. It's only their ARAI fuel efficiency ratings that are slightly different, with this Creta having the slight advantage.
Now, out on the road, the Seltos gets off the line quite aggressively. In fact, the clutch release is quite sharp. So it can catch you out in slow-moving traffic, or when you're parking on a slope and you give it that little extra bit of gas, it tends to lurch forward. So one has to be a little careful with that. But otherwise than that, this engine is refined. It feels strong. So performance is really enjoyable. However, when you compare it to the Creta, the kickdowns are a little slower, and that shows up in the in-gear acceleration times, where the Creta is quicker. In the flat-out acceleration though, the Seltos has the slight advantage, and it's probably down to the sharper clutch release that gets it off the line aggressively.
The Creta's clutch progression feels a lot smoother compared to that of the Seltos, and overall it feels like the much nicer gearbox, especially at lower speeds. This makes the Creta much better suited to hustling around in traffic, but if you find yourself an open road and want to drive quickly, the Creta has one more distinct advantage, and that's paddle shifters. And the paddle shifters are a real welcome addition, especially on a turbo variant like this, which most people will buy for the fun to drive factor.
As far as handling goes, it's the Seltos that gives you that little more confidence. The steering feels weightier, there's less body roll, and it's just the one that goes around corners better. While most people may not drive their cars enthusiastically on a winding section of road, and this may not make a difference on other variants, we do have to remember that these are the turbo petrols, and the people who buy this variant are also looking for an enjoyable experience behind the wheel.
Yes, that's right, Renuka, because the Creta steering is lighter, which is good for the city, but other than that, it's not as consistent as the Seltos, and around the corners, the Creta does have a lot more roll too. When it comes to ride quality, both cars are very comfortable, but the Creta does have a little bit of an advantage. It rounds off bumps significantly better and has an extra layer of absorption that the Seltos simply does not. And this is an advantage that can be felt in the back seat as well, isolating your passengers from what's going on underneath the wheel.
This is so strange.
This is the safe distance, I
Yeah.
think. Well, what do we think? It's really close, isn't it? And well, I guess it would be, because really they have so much in common, these two cars. But I think after driving them extensively,
Yeah, absolutely. I think once you drive them back to back, you really can tell the differences between the two. The Seltos, the interiors just have that slightly more soft touch materials. The dash layout is a little bit nicer and the interior just feels richer. The experience behind the wheel is one that you enjoy more, especially if you enjoy driving. It just feels more stable, more planted. And of course, there's those looks. That isn't even a contest. I mean, there's no debate there.
nope, I have to agree with you there 100%. I know they were trying to go for something bold with the Creta.
A bit too bold, I think.
A bit too bold. I can't wrap my head around the looks. But one thing's for sure, they seem to have learnt their lessons from the Seltos in making the Creta. Like for instance, the gearbox is a lot smoother. The ride is just a little bit more comfortable.
Absolutely.
And they focused a lot more on the back seat, which is just a little bit plusher in this car. But it's still so very close. Even the price of these two top-end DCT turbo petrols is within 10,000 rupees of each other.
Splitting hairs, Gavin, hairs, and I think we have to not be socially distanced but put a paper between these two cars to actually separate them. That's how close the battle is, and I don't think we've seen one that's been fought so hard in a long time. It is tough to pick a winner, and frankly I don't think you'd be wrong to buy either one of these cars.
No.
The Seltos, those looks, they grab your attention immediately. The interiors feel more premium, like I said. And of course, that experience behind the wheel, if you're an enthusiast like me, you'll definitely enjoy driving this one, yeah, a lot more. But in saying that, I think the Creta has its strengths. It has a few features that really, give it an edge over this, like the panoramic sunroof and the paddle shifters. Those are really key additions. And I think, it balances out that experience behind the wheel and in the back seat much better. So you can enjoy driving the car, but the back seat is definitely more comfortable than the Seltos. So, if you're choosing a car that is an entire package, then I'd have to say that the Creta edges by the minutest margin ahead.
Well, I have to say I agree, and for once I don't think we can shake on it. But
No, I guess it's just so long, farewell, goodbye this time.
it's been a triple whammy of new model reveals from BMW recently, as the Bavarian brand showcased the facelifted 5 Series, the facelifted 6 Series, and the all-new second generation 4 Series Coupe. I'm Gavin from Autocar India, and we're going to do a quick run-through of these 3 new models. Now let's get right into it in numerical order with the 4 Series. Strictly speaking, this is probably the least significant model of the 3 for the Indian market. And what it is essentially is a more stylish 2-door version of the popular 3 Series sedan. Now I say more stylish, but I'm sure a lot of you have opinions about that grille. It's a new direction for BMW and you're going to see more of it, so you might as well get used to it. Other than that, the 4 Series Coupe is a rather clean looking design, with a more aggressively raked roof, muscular rear haunches, and in contrast to the in-your-face front end, the tail is surprisingly subdued with the latest iteration of BMW's L-shaped tail lamps. The 4 Series is available with a similar suite of engines as the 3 Series overseas, and that means 4-cylinder petrols, the 184 horsepower 420i and 258 horsepower 430i, and a 6-cylinder petrol, the 374 horsepower M440i. Then there are the diesels, the 4-cylinder 190 horsepower 420d, plus the 6-cylinder 286 horsepower 430d and 340 horsepower M440d. Moreover, there will likely be PHEV and EV versions down the line. Oh, and of course, an M4 with over 500 horsepower. Inside, it's pretty much the same as the 3 Series, but of course, this is a 2-door with a sloping roof, so the back seats are much smaller and just suited for kids. But much like with the bigger 8 Series, convertible and 4-door Gran Coupe versions are likely to follow. It's also lower, wider and stiffer than a 3 Series, so expect the handling to be even better. Now the big question, will it come to India? Well, as for the standard guises, we don't know for sure, but given the success of the locally assembled X4, it is a possibility. And that M440i would make a good rival to the likes of the AMG C43 and the Audi S5. But it remains to be seen which body styles they choose to bring here. What's almost certain though is that we will get the M4, as we did with the previous generation. What is definitely coming to India is the facelifted 5 Series. The luxury sedan gets a sharper, more business-like look all around thanks to new headlamps with BMW's latest L-shaped DRL signature, new bumpers, and of course, a bigger grille that's mounted lower this time around. Still, it's not as big or in your face as the one in the 4 Series or the 7 Series. At the back, there's a new design for the tail lamps and trapezoidal tailpipes, and BMW says the new bodywork makes this car 27mm longer and improves aerodynamics, giving it a class-leading drag coefficient of 0.23. Inside, not too much has changed, but you will find a new color display for the climate control like in the 7 Series, the latest version of BMW's digital dials, which we don't love so much, and the latest version of the iDrive infotainment system, which we do. Moreover, while lower models get a 10.3-inch touchscreen, which is about the same size as the current cars, higher variants will get a larger 12.3-inch unit. And now, the 6 Series Gran Turismo facelift, which gets changes quite similar to the ones on the 5 Series. Here too, you'll find new headlamps with the L-shaped DRL signature, new bumpers and a new grille. Only this one is far more angular and mimics the one on its SUV counterpart, the X6. At the rear of the 6 GT, there are similarly minor changes, just as there were on the 5. And on the inside too, the updates are very subtle, apart from that bigger 12.3-inch touchscreen, which on this car is standard. Coming to the engines, globally it's offered as a 258 horsepower 4-cylinder 630i petrol, a 333 horsepower 6-cylinder 640i petrol, a 190 horsepower 4-cylinder 620D diesel, a 286 horsepower 6-cylinder 630D diesel, and a 340 horsepower 6-cylinder 640D diesel. All mated to 8-speed torque converter automatic gearboxes. Not surprisingly, these are pretty much the same engines you'll find in the 5 Series facelift globally, but for the sedan you get a few more options. There are 2 petrol plug-in hybrids, the 4-cylinder 530e and the 6-cylinder 545e, as well as the powerful M550i with a 530 horsepower 4.4-litre V8. And yes, there will eventually be an updated M5, which could even get a more hardcore CS variant. Overseas, all engines for both these cars now come with 48-volt mild hybrid systems, but it remains to be seen if BMW brings these to India or will just continue with the existing engines, the 30i, the 20D and the 30D, as they've all just been upgraded to BS6. Both models will take on the new Audi A6, the Jaguar XF, the Lexus ES, the Volvo S90 and the heavily facelifted Mercedes-Benz E-Class, which will replace the current model. So when are these new Beamers coming to India? Well, with all launches in the auto industry having been delayed by some extent, don't expect the updated 5 and 6 series or indeed the 4 series to come here until at least early 2021. But don't worry, as BMW India does have some interesting launches lined up for the rest of the year.
And now it's time for tips on sustainability and protecting the environment with Servo Futura G Plus from Indian Oil. Choose a smaller car if you don't need the size and space. Overloading the car with weight makes it work harder.